Big story at 6. A plot to kill at least 2 Milwaukee police officers. Fox 6 uncovered the documents.
And more may have been targeted. Court papers show 5 people have been charged. Police say all of them are gang members.
Arrested Kobe Hanna, a convicted felon with ties to the Burleigh Zoo family, identified by the feds as a violent street gang in Milwaukee. Investigators recovered weapons, a stolen car, and phones. On Hanna's phone, a series of text messages to Officer Madlock. According to the federal indictment, the District 6 officer had been communicating with Hanna for years, giving him confidential information, even advice on how to elude officers if he was being chased.
They were called the Buffum Meinecke Boys. They operated in and around Milwaukee's Harambe neighborhood near the city's northeast side.
It's a dangerous enterprise that they're involved in.
In February of last year, a federal investigation and a cross-collaboration of law enforcement cracked down on their operation.
It's a fight between 2 groups of girls and ended with gunfire. Now prosecutors just charged the 17-year-old gunman as an adult for shooting and injuring 4 teens last month.
Police call them the Wild 100.
Chief Ed Flynn says the group is responsible for an extraordinary number of stolen vehicles.
And that is just the beginning.
Milwaukee County prosecutors say they've charged some of the top members of the Menace of Destruction. Authorities say they're among gang that has strong ties to Milwaukee, and they've been committing violent crimes in 4 states and all across Wisconsin.
At a corner house near 16th and Wright in Milwaukee, a single light helps illuminate a 2-story home. Police say this was a drug house run by one of Milwaukee's most notorious gangs.
Their crimes include everything from multiple homicide and to armed robbery, all the way through the narcotics trafficking, which they're still engaged in today.
A search warrant says the gang was using drug houses.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a city known for its brewing heritage, blue-collar grit, and musical legends like Al Jarreau, Speech from Arrested Development, and Cuckoo Cal has also lived a darker chapter beneath its skyline. While Milwaukee produced rhythm and resilience, it also birthed decades of gang warfare that scarred entire generations. From the organized structure of the Gangster Disciples and La Familia to homegrown outfits like Murda Mobb, Buffum Meinecke Boys, and the Burleigh Zoo Family, federal and local task forces have spent years dismantling crews whose reach spanned drugs, guns, and deletion for hire plots. This documentary traces the rise and fall of Milwaukee's most dangerous gangs, blending federal indictments, local shootouts, and tragic betrayals into one story of crime and consequence where loyalty was currency and silence often meant survival.
According to the criminal complaint, this all stems from this night, August 11th of last year. An 18-year-old woman and 21-year-old man were shot near 7th and Bruce. Police say it was gang-related, and very soon a plot began to take shape to get revenge. 5 people have already been charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree intentional homicide. They are Eliza Cruz, Joe Frazier, Gabriel Guerrero, Maricela Gullickson, and Michael Gellick. According to court papers, all 5 are members of the La Familia gang. They say that Cruz admitted to planting the seed for this crime. Frazier was going to be the shooter, and Gullickson admitted to knowing and even encouraging it. Gellick was going to be the lookout, and Guerrero was somewhat of a mastermind behind the whole thing. Now, their target was that rival gang member, which they believed was responsible for the shooting back in August. And in a strange twist, that gang member is related to a Milwaukee police officer who also became a target. Another officer is also mentioned as a target, but right now it's not clear why. A search warrant was filed by Milwaukee police just this week requesting cell phone records. The complaint says prepaid phones had already been purchased by Guerrero. They were to be used for the shooting and then thrown away. The complaint also says officers searched the home of a man related to Cruz. Inside, they found 7 different guns, including a 12-gauge shotgun and an AK-47 assault rifle.
On August 11, 2012, a gang-related shooting on Milwaukee's South Side left 2 people wounded and triggered a revenge plot by La Familia members to delete a rival they blamed along with 2 Milwaukee police officers, one of whom was related to the rival. According to court records, Eliza Cruz Jr. floated the plan. Joe Frazier was tapped as the gunman. Maricela Gullickson encouraged the scheme. Michael Gellick agreed to serve as lookout. and Gabriel Guerrero acted as the organizer. The crew discussed surveillance, using prepaid burner phones, and even employing a scoped rifle for an ambush. Police later called it an unusually organized conspiracy to assassinate officers in retaliation for pressure on the gang's territory. The plot unraveled before any deletions occurred, and all 5 were charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree intentional deletion. Guerrero pleaded guilty to a reduced-count conspiracy to endanger safety and received 4 years in state prison plus 5 years extended supervision, ordered consecutive to a prior sentence. Frazier went to trial and was acquitted. Another co-defendant's trial ended in a mistrial, and remaining charges against others were reduced or otherwise resolved short of a deletion conspiracy conviction. At sentencing, targeted officers described the strain of living under an active hit, a factor the judge cited in imposing Guerrero's prison term.
The 31-page complaint in federal court names District 6 Officer Jawan Madlock. According to the complaint, a search warrant targeting a convicted felon led investigators to an iPhone containing text messages between the felon and Officer Madlock. In one exchange, according to the complaint, Madlock offers advice on escaping a chase, writing, "I told you, if you ever get in a speed, get on that highway and just keep going. They gotta cancel it." The complaint describes another exchange as Madlock using a police database to provide the felon with the home addresses of rival gang members, writing, "Try Buffum. He's probably where he feels safe." The complaint also accuses Madlock of offering to sell the felon Glock handguns for the purpose of installing switches on the weapons. A switch turns a regular handgun into a machine gun, capable of spraying multiple bullets in a fraction of a second with a single pull of the trigger.
The home near 41st and Townsend belongs to now former Milwaukee police officer Jawan Madlock. This is his mugshot. Video taken by a neighbor shows the FBI raiding the home on Wednesday. Inside, federal agents found here that officers arrested Kobe Hanna, a convicted felon with ties to the Burleigh Zoo Family, identified by the feds as a violent street gang in Milwaukee. Investigators recovered weapons, a stolen car, and phones. On Hanna's phone, a series of text messages to Officer Madlock. According to the federal indictment, the District 6 officer had been communicating with Hanna for years, giving him confidential information, even advice on how to elude officers if he was being chased.
A March 2025 federal indictment rocked Milwaukee when District 6 officer, a nearly 10-year MPD veteran, was charged with secretly aiding the Burleigh Zoo Family, described in court filings as a violent street gang. According to investigators, digital forensics from BZF associate Kobe Hanna's phone uncovered years of encrypted chats in which Madlock allegedly funneled confidential police information to gang members, ran unauthorized searches in restricted law enforcement databases to retrieve rival gang members' home addresses, and even coached evasion tactics, including a text advising a suspect to get on that highway and just keep going so a high-speed pursuit would be terminated. The case broke open after Hanna's October 2024 arrest at a Greenfield apartment, where agents recovered illegal guns, including a Glock equipped with an auto-sear switch, a stolen vehicle, and phones that later tied back to the officer. When MPD Internal Affairs and the FBI confronted Madlock on March 12, 2025, he resigned on the spot and was taken into federal custody. The case remains pending in federal court. Madlock faces counts that include conspiracy to violate civil rights and unauthorized access of a protected computer for misusing police databases, with potential additional state misconduct charges. If convicted on all federal counts, the exposure could extend to double-digit years in prison. MPD Chief Jeffrey Norman called the allegations an isolated breach of trust and vowed full cooperation. Mayor Cavalier Johnson likewise stressed accountability. Prosecutors have indicated the probe is widening to determine whether any other officials were compromised, and local defense attorneys are reviewing prior cases involving Madlock, given his appearance on the county's Brady list. Separately, several BZF members, including Hanna, faced state gun and narcotics charges stemming from the 2024 raid. For now, the Madlock indictment stands as a stark warning that Milwaukee's anti-gang fight must also guard against internal corruption, and that, while every defendant is entitled to due process, no one is above the law.
At a gas station near 49th and Villard, the nearly month-long search for a shooting suspect ends in a chase.
You know, come on. We got to do better than this. You know, it has to get better than this. It really does.
That was a neighbor's response the morning of May 26th. Just after midnight, near 38th and Roberts, Milwaukee police say a group of girls showed up to a house planning to fight another group of girls over boys and not being good friends. Then someone opened fire, hitting 4 teenagers who were all female. We stopped by the house Tuesday and found bullet holes in the neighbor's car and house. The criminal complaint says officers recovered 16 spent casings fired from a semi-automatic rifle, eventually tracing them to 17-year-old Avant Turner, which brings us back to the gas station. On Thursday, surveillance video shows undercover officers spotting a stolen car. The 4 people inside run off, but officers arrest all 4. They say Turner was in the back on the driver's side, and inside the car, the complaint says officers found a semi-automatic rifle directly where Turner was seated. He faces 6 total charges, including 4 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety with use of a dangerous weapon.
In 2022-2023, Milwaukee's deadliest gunplay didn't just trace back to legacy gangs, it also came from loosely organized neighborhood cliques with names like the Renzo Boys, Sean Boys, Wani Boys, Brothers Before Millions, Road to Millions, and Get Back Gang GBG. Police tied this rolling feud to at least 24 deletions, 67 non-fatal shootings, and 82 shots fired calls as grudges. Social media taunts and turf spats spiraled into drive-bys and street ambushes. One flashpoint hit May 26, 2023, near South 38th and West Burnham, where a crowd gathered for what was supposed to be a fist fight between girls from rival circles. According to investigators, Avant Turner, identified as aligned with Road to Millions, stepped from an alley and fired into the group, wounding 4 teens 16 to 19. Detectives recovered 16 shell casings, found bullet holes in a nearby home and car, and later arrested Turner after a short chase on June 15. He was caught in a stolen car with 2 guns, one of which ballistics matched to the Burnham shooting. Prosecutors charged Turner as an adult with 4 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety with dangerous weapon enhancers and 2 counts of possession of a firearm by an adjudicated delinquent, noting a prior 2022 juvenile adjudication for a shooting. His cash bond was set at $25,000, and as of late 2025, the case remains pending amid docket backlogs. Police say his arrest and the jailing of several other key players cooled the feud's tempo for a time. City leaders condemned the attack as emblematic of the clique wars challenge, disputes that start as teenage drama or online posturing, but escalate to gunfire with major casualty potential. If convicted, Turner faces substantial prison exposure. In the meantime, MPD and violence prevention groups are pushing focused interventions to keep similar retaliations from reigniting.
They were called the Buffum Meinecke Boys. They operated in and around Milwaukee's Harambe neighborhood near the city's northeast side.
It's a dangerous enterprise that they're involved in.
In February of last year, a federal investigation and a cross-collaboration of law enforcement cracked down on their operation. Authorities say several members of the Buffum Meinecke Boys were found with lethal arsenal. At the time, police seized over $300,000, along with various drug quantities.
By early 2020, federal and local authorities zeroed in on the Buffum Meinecke Boys, a Milwaukee gang named for streets in the Harambe neighborhood. After an 8-month probe, a coordinated sweep on February 25th arrested 17 suspects and ultimately charged 24 people with running a violent, wholesale-to-street drug pipeline pushing drugs. 15 defendants were indicted for a large-scale conspiracy. while 9 others faced individual narcotics and firearms counts. Investigators documented BMB's use of guns to protect the Trade One member, Victor Gonzalez, unlawfully amassed 37 firearms and seized 53 guns, including assault-style rifles, drugs, and about $300,000 in cash. 6 defendants initially fled and were considered armed and dangerous. Most were later captured, including Linton, arrested in 2022 on an unrelated attempted deletion case. In federal court, the majority of defendants pleaded guilty between 2020 and 2022 to conspiracy or distribution charges. Sentences generally fell in the 5 to 15-year range, calibrated to role and drug weight. Case lead Ramon J. Locke, identified as a principal coke supplier with prior federal drug convictions and alleged witness intimidation while on bond, received 12 years in prison plus 4 years supervised release. Gonzalez, as the de facto armorer, drew a stiff firearms sentence. Several mid-level dealers, including Nicholas Weldon and Dion Butts, received mid-range terms after cooperating. As of 2025, nearly all 24 defendants have been convicted or are awaiting final sentencing, and officials characterize the BMB takedown as one of Milwaukee's largest in recent memory, removing a fortified, gun-backed drug enterprise and disrupting a key driver of neighborhood violence.
Big hit to a notorious Milwaukee gang. The Murda Mobb has been committing violent crimes in Milwaukee for more than a decade now. Milwaukee police say they're still at it. Now officers tell our Ben Handelman several top gang members have been busted.
At a corner house near 16th and Wright in Milwaukee, a single light helps illuminate a 2-story home. Police say this was a drug house run by one of Milwaukee's most notorious gangs.
Their crimes include everything from multiple homicide and to armed robbery, all the way through the narcotics trafficking, which they're still engaged in today.
A search warrant says the gang was using drug houses. For roughly 15 years, the Murda Mobb has been accused of homicides, armed robberies, drug slinging, and death threats. Several members are serving life sentences. Milwaukee police say a few more may be joining them behind bars.
We actually arrested 3 of our top 5 people that we were looking for in the organization.
In a simultaneous December sting, high-ranking members were arrested. One of their suspected founding members, Akila Crittenden, was picked up in October. Milwaukee police say 2 more members escaped the December sting, Terrence Woodley and Robert Johnson. Catching Johnson, a man who spent time in prison for a homicide, is the department's top priority.
The Murda Mobb, one of Milwaukee's most notorious street gangs, rose in the 2000s and was tied by police to homicides, hundreds of armed robberies, narcotics trafficking, and even threats against officers. In 2013, MPD intensified pressure on the crew. On October 5, 2013, officers stopped a car for a seatbelt violation. The driver, Akila Crittenden, a reputed co-founder and leader, bolted, then tried to stash a loaded handgun on a shelf inside an auto parts store. Surveillance video and a quick search ended the chase. Court filings described Crittenden's use of safe houses to hide members and outlined Murda Mobb's long record of violence. Weeks later, in December 2013, a sting at a drug house near 16th and Wright seized drugs and netted 3 of the gang's top 5 leaders, though high-ranking members Terrence Woodley and Robert Johnson escaped and were sought as fugitive. Crittenden struck a plea, admitting felon in possession of a firearm. Lesser counts carrying concealed weapon, resisting, were dismissed. On April 1, 2014, a judge sentenced him to 3.5 years in state prison for the gun offense and fleeing. At sentencing, detectives testified Murda Mobb members had been implicated in 24 deletions, underscoring the need to incapacitate leadership. Police said several Murda Mobb figures were already serving life sentences, and the late 2013 arrests further fractured the hierarchy, pushing more of the gang's most violent actors off the streets.
Breaking news from this morning: an FBI raid at a Milwaukee home is connected to a federal fraud and for hire investigation. Federal agents used flashbangs this morning to draw a man from a home near 72nd and Silver Spring. News Chopper 12 flew over the scene, showing him taken into custody. Tonight, we've learned he is one of 27 people named in a 43-count indictment unsealed today. The people charged are accused of being associated with a Milwaukee street gang called the Wild 100s. The indictment accuses some of using millions of dollars from fake pandemic unemployment assistance applications to buy guns, drugs, and even kill a man for money.
The indictment alleges that the defendants conspired to commit mail fraud by submitting false applications for unemployment benefits, including those under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, to defraud the Department of Labor. They reportedly used these unlawfully obtained federal funds, amounting to millions of dollars, for purchases like firearms, drugs, luxury items, vacations, and to arrange a hire. The indictment charges Ronell Bowman and Ronnie Jackson with arranging a deletion for hire, using interstate commerce to facilitate this plan between March 15 and April 5, 2021. Count 28 further charges these defendants with using and discharging a firearm in the deletion for hire, resulting in a deletion. Each of these counts could result in a life sentence, with count 28 carrying a mandatory minimum of 10 years.
Now, and Milwaukee police call them the Wild 100.
Chief Ed Flynn says the group is responsible for an extraordinary number of stolen vehicles.
Well, Mike and Courtney, the chief says that gang is responsible for causing and terrorizing all parts of Milwaukee, all over the city. It was right here where he says one of those gang members caused a terrible accident last night.
Tonight, police announced a dozen arrests tied to a violent gang on the city's north side.
It follows a very violent start to the year already. 1,550 stolen cars. And just last night, police say a teen stole a car, led officers on a chase, and then crashed into several other cars.
That boy is affiliated with a street gang known as the Wild 100s. Coincidentally, the target of morning police and federal raids in Milwaukee, leading to nearly a dozen arrests.
We're talking about a gang that is a loose group of criminal crews that run under the same banner and are creating havoc in all parts of the city of Milwaukee.
District 4 Captain Vic Beecher says the gang attracts young people through social media.
Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn announced a major breakthrough with the arrest of multiple members of the Wild 100s gang in a coordinated operation. 11 individuals were detained, adding to over 100 gang-related arrests since September. Chief Flynn highlighted that the gang, which originated on Chicago's South Side, is responsible for significant crimes in Milwaukee, including car thefts, armed robberies, drug trafficking, and violent incidents such as shootings. During the operation, Milwaukee police recovered firearms, drugs, and cash. The sweep builds on previous efforts, as police have filed 180 felony charges and seized over 35 firearms since the operation began. Chief Flynn emphasized the goal of diminishing the gang's influence in the community by systematically prosecuting involved individuals. The gang's crimes have also led to tragic events, including the demise of a 13-month who was shot when an accused dealer allegedly fired into the wrong home. Another incident involved a gang member fatally shot during a robbery attempt, underscoring the community impact of the gang's violence. Chief Flynn reinforced the commitment to erode the gang's influence by building robust cases against those arrested, aiming to protect Milwaukee neighborhoods.
Shootings, beatings, and robberies tonight. 15 members of a Milwaukee street gang are charged with a series of violent crimes.
Well, Terry, this is only the second time since 2002 that these kind of charges have been filed in Milwaukee County. Tonight, 7 of the 15 suspects charged are in jail for years of organized criminal activity.
We've been covering the crimes over a span of 6 years, including this shooting at a park back in 2007 and the beating of this teenager in rival gang colors near a gas station in August of 2009. Milwaukee County prosecutors say they've charged some of the top members of the Menace of Destruction. Authorities say they're among gang that has strong ties to Milwaukee, and they've been committing violent crimes in 4 states and all across Wisconsin.
Where you have a tightly knit organization, it's very difficult to penetrate that organization because of family ties, because of unique cultural issues that tie them together.
Menace of Destruction, also known as MOD, posted pictures and rap videos on YouTube and MySpace, showing off symbols and sporting their color red.
The Menace of Destruction, a Wisconsin-based Hmong gang, was involved in a range of violent and criminal activities, including shootings, stabbings, aggravated assaults, burglaries, and perjury over a 6-year period across 5 states, as detailed in a 67-page criminal complaint from the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office. The charges, based on years of investigation and information from 6 confidential informants, name 15 members and associates of the gang. This long-term investigation included collaboration between local police in Wisconsin and Minnesota, as well as state and federal agents, and follows a federal indictment of 17 gang members on related charges. The complaint outlines the gang's history, rituals, and use of symbols such as the color red and the 5-dot symbol. Violent initiation practices, drug trafficking, auto theft, burglary, and a protracted turf war with the Asian Crips, which involved over 120 shootings and acts of violence from 2004 to 2009, were among the gang's activities. Key figures within the gang held titles like Shots, short for shot caller, who directed operations. The complaint also recounts incidents of weapon theft, including the 2007 burglary of a Pepin County shop where 34 firearms were stolen.
After an 8-month joint investigation, the FBI and Milwaukee police launched a major strike against the local Gangster Disciples crew. On June 9, 2017, a federal grand jury returned indictments charging 11 alleged members ages 17 to 35 on roughly 40 counts tied to drug distribution and firearms offenses. 5 suspects were arrested in the initial sweep. 6 were initially fugitives. Search warrants at 5 properties turned up 17 firearms, including handguns modified for automatic fire, plus 3 vehicles used in trafficking. Prosecutors brought the case federally to trigger tougher penalties. Filed in the Eastern District of Wisconsin, the case moved forward through 2018-2019. A defense motion to suppress wiretap evidence was denied, and as the evidence mounted, most defendants pleaded guilty to drug conspiracy and slash or gun charges. By 2019, the majority had been sentenced. Coleman and Brown accepted plea deals and received multi-year terms. Sykes, identified as an enforcer, also pleaded and drew a substantial sentence. Fugitives Jenkins and Vesey were later captured and convicted. Jenkins received a notably heavy term due to his role in flight. May's link to weapons received 8 years. Across the group, sentences generally ranged from about 5 to 12 years, calibrated to each person's role and record. By 2020, all 11 had either been imprisoned or were awaiting final sentencing after guilty pleas. Officials credited the case with dismantling a violent GD faction and easing gang-driven shootings in the affected neighborhoods. From 2011 to 2013, Milwaukee's Uptown Street Boys ran a ruthless witness-elimination campaign that prosecutors say was engineered by senior member Dante Rossi. The violence began after the December 2011 robbery demise of Joseph M. Seabeath Jr. Fearing accomplices would cooperate with police, Rossi allegedly set out to silence them. On January 4, 2012, Associate Irvin Buddha Hale was lured to a location and shot at least 5 times. In September 2012, Israel Izzy Gatlin, recently released from custody, was found with 10 gunshot wounds, 4 to the head. A year later, in September 2013, Rossi turned on close associate Emmanuel J. Carter, arranging an ambush that left Carter paralyzed. Carter later told investigators he helped delete Hale and Gatlin under Rossi's orders, and out of fear he'd be next. The case broke through a culture of intimidation with a mix of informant testimony, surveillance video, and even rap lyric confessions, culminating in Carter flipping and testifying. In early 2016, Carter pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree reckless deletion for Hale and Gatlin and received a total sentence of 86 years, including 63 years initial confinement and 23 years extended supervision. Rossi went to trial in May 2016 and was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree reckless deletion and first-degree reckless injury for the Carter ambush. In July 2016, a Milwaukee judge called Rossi's crimes heinous, imposing double life without parole plus 35 years, ensuring he will never be released. The prosecution became a landmark example of how persistent detective work can overcome a gang's code of silence and dismantle witness intimidation murders. In July 2011, a two-day ICE-led sweep in Milwaukee, part of Operation Community Shield, resulted in 30 arrests, targeting members and associates of the Mexican Posse, Latin Kings, Brown Pride, and C-14 Serenos. Agents identified 17 confirmed gang members and 13 associates, many with prior records. 6 were arrested on local criminal warrants, while 24 were taken into ICE custody for immigration violations. The outcome was swift. Most arrestees were processed for removal deportation, including 13 Mexican nationals tied to Mexican Posse, and a Dominican national federally charged with illegal re-entry. ICE noted that 5 of the men had previously been deported and now face felony re-entry penalties up to 20 years in prison, highlighting the operation's deterrent effect. Officials credited the sweep with removing violent gang actors from the streets and improving neighborhood safety. In 2015, Milwaukee's Brothers of the Struggle drove a months-long wave of gun violence that culminated in a rolling shootout on I-43 during morning traffic. Detectives had already flagged BOS figures amid a spike in shootings. On November 28, 2015, victim Tony Vance was chased and fatally shot near West Townsend Street and North Sherman Boulevard. 2 weeks later, on December 9th, cameras captured a stolen black Infiniti and a blue SUV chasing a white sedan through the Marquette interchange as gunfire erupted from both sides. The Infiniti crashed. 4 suspects ran. Officers nabbed Macklin, Dyson, and Johnson after a foot chase and tied Lewis and Campbell to the scene through fingerprints, DNA on discarded clothes, and vehicle evidence. More than 3 dozen casings were recovered. Ballistics matched a .45 used in the freeway ambush to the same weapon that deleted Vance. A 9mm linked Macklin, Dyson, and Lewis to a prior July drive-by. Shot spotter alerts, surveillance video, and carjacking records further stitched the cases together. A jury in December 2016 convicted Macklin Dyson of 2 counts of attempted first-degree intentional deletion for the freeway fusillade in bail jumping. He was acquitted in Vance's deletion. In January 2017, the court imposed 54 years of initial confinement plus 22 years of extended supervision, 76 years total, citing the extraordinary danger of spraying rounds across a packed interstate. Johnson later pleaded guilty to reduced counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety and received a prison term. Lewis and Campbell were charged in related BOS shootings, including a November 18th attack that wounded 2 brothers. Ballistic matches and eyewitness accounts anchored those prosecutions. The BOS case became a local template for tech-driven gun investigations using ShotSpotter and NIBIN to treat shell casing tool marks like fingerprints and map a crew's firearms across multiple scenes while permanently sidelining several of the crew's most active shooters. In late 2015, the FBI Southeastern Wisconsin Gang Task Force, working with Milwaukee Police, and the DEA zeroed in on 2 allied North Side crews known as HPT and ATK for Hampton and Atkinson Avenues. A December sweep capped months of surveillance and buys. Agents arrested 7 members, seized 3 guns, drugs, and roughly $3,800 in cash. The action followed a broader mid-2015 push that had already netted 15 related arrests on state and federal counts, with investigators describing HPT and ATK as tightly linked cells driving shootings along the Hampton and Atkinson corridor. Several defendants pleaded guilty in 2016. 3 Lacey, Graham, and Riley initially eluded arrest, prompting an FBI fugitive alert that warned they were armed and dangerous. All were apprehended in the ensuing months. In federal court, HPT and ATK defendants received prison terms scaled to their drug quantities and gun conduct. Public records reflect convictions for Lacey and conspiracy convictions for Graham and Riley, among others. By 2017, the fugitives were no longer at large, and authorities credited the case with disrupting the crew's fueling neighborhood gun violence. The joint FBI-MPD task force based at MPD District 5 has continued to monitor remaining associates and offshoots. Milwaukee's gang history reads like a battle between ambition and annihilation, where entire neighborhoods became war zones and generations were lost to the street code. Yet, the same city that raised Les Paul, Tank, and RICO love also continues to raise voices calling for change. The struggle has shifted from domination to restoration. Many of the leaders profiled here, whether Gangster Disciples, La Familia, or Murda Mobb, are now serving decades behind bars, while Milwaukee works to reclaim its blocks through mentorship, prevention, and opportunity. The story isn't over, but each indictment, each arrest, and each life saved pushes the city one step closer to breaking the cycle that's haunted its streets for decades.